Welcome to the podcast. I'm Wes Brown, recording from Rapid City, South Dakota at the Magpie.
This is the Racing Magpie.
I knew it was. I was missing something. The Racing Magpie. Thank you very much. I'm sitting here with Rapid City City Councilwoman Darla Drew. She represents Ward 5, and she's been representing them since 2014.
Yes.
This is your third term.
My third term, amazingly, yes.
That's awesome. That's quite an accomplishment in itself. Mm-hmm. She also is a communications and sales director for Black Hills Playhouse. And I gotta mention some accolades, if you don't mind.
Well, of course, I wouldn't mind. I'll give you 10 minutes to stop.
So anyway, in 2001, Darla was recognized with the Athena Leadership Award for Professional Excellence, Community Service, and for actively assisting women in their attainment of professional excellence and leadership skills. In 2005, she was recognized by the Rapid City Chamber of Commerce with the Rushmore Honors Award for her significant contributions to the arts and culture in Rapid City. Then in 2011, this is a part I like. She was, along with her band DD The Fayrohs, which is Fayrohs.
Yes.
Were inducted into the South Dakota Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You know why it's spelled like that? I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yeah, please do.
Because we took the name from the movie American Graffiti, and they said Fayrohs. So our drummer wanted to have it spelled that way, and it's been a thorn in our side ever since then, because no one can spell it.
Well,
so,
and then of course the American Pharaoh, the horse that won the Triple Crown.
We took credit for that.
Wrong. But not only that, you were also inducted in 2018 for the Black Hills Talent and Booking Agency.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And that you started in 1979.
Right. Yeah. And that was at a time when young people did businesses like that. We just took up that mantle because it was a business model that we needed. You know, we needed people that would book the young bands. And at 23, I was considered, one of the older ones. And so I just stepped into that position I had a couple guys that I worked with for a while, but eventually, they had to exit and I took over the business.
Wow. And so, the thing that strikes me, I'm a product of the 60s and graduated in 1980, actually, from Sisseton. So that was kind of a man's world, wasn't it, in booking or not?
Oh, it was very much, even bands were very much a man's world, but, when I graduated, saying that I'm younger than you, in 1974 from Stevens High School, there weren't a lot of choices for women. You go to college, be a teacher, be a receptionist, be a stewardess, maybe a waitress, possibly work in retail. There wasn't a lot, and mainly you're expected to get married, which that wasn't my track,
right?
And I wanted to be in rock bands. My older brother was in rock bands. We'd had bands and musicians practicing in our basement of our house since 1968, and he also took the business track. It seems like in our family, we were good at being musicians, but mainly we were good at the business end of it as well. So my older brother, he is, just to catch you up with what you can do with an entrepreneurial background, he's now the producer for the Billy Graham show. So he works around the world. My younger brother owns a production music house in Minneapolis that also just signed a deal with Disney ABC 2 years ago. So he's always between both coasts. And then I took the business path here and just worked here for 25 years with bands.
Well, and we should backtrack. So that's not the only, those aren't the only accolades, but recently you were as a legacy recipient, right?
Yeah, the Rushmore Honors people decided, you can see all the awards, and I know this goes across the world, so it won't mean a lot to people outside of South Dakota, but here in Rapid City at the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center Theater, you can see all the people that won this award. And so they decided they were no longer going to give the award. They were running out of room, running out of space for it, for one thing. But so they picked 4 people they thought represented the arts in Rapid City. And I was one of those lucky recipients, along with Stan Adelstein, who is an incredible philanthropist, Ruth Brennan, who really was the impetus behind a lot of the Dahl Arts Center and a lot of the art in this community, along with Kenny Putnam, who we know has been a very successful violin fiddle player and traveled the world, toured with Roy Clark,
Yep.
and then me.
Well, you're in good company.
Yes, I am.
So just as a side note, speaking of Stan Adelstein's philanthropy, I was a student at Black Hills State and I was a student body president in 1994 and had the opportunity to go to Israel, and he paid for my trip and along with 10 other student body presidents from across the country to go to Israel for, I think it was like 10 to 14 days now. I think it was 10 days, but what amazing. A generous man. I appreciate him a lot.
He is so generous, and he has changed this community.
Yeah.
His what he chooses to support has really changed Rapid City.
Right. So let's briefly talk about growing up in Rapid City and then starting a rock band and being you're the front woman of the band, weren't you?
Yeah, front woman, leader, those kinds of things. And I always was. I just kind of had that sensibility even as a young person. So anyway, I grew up in Rapid City. My father was in the military. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, although she always seemed like she wanted to work, but that just wasn't really acceptable for an officer's wife. But, in the 60s, that was changing, and eventually Mom got a job and was a much happier person after that. But
Right.
she played piano a lot around the house, and so us kids got a lot of music around the house, and then she insisted we all have piano lessons. And then the Beatles hit, right? And everybody's DNA changed a little bit when they hit. And if you had that inclination at all, you were going to probably try to do that. So my brother started bands when he was in junior high and high school, and they practiced in our basement. And then, so I kind of saw how it got done. And my parents didn't mind, they kind of thought it was cool, so, and that's kind of unusual for a military man. And then after one of the members of that very successful band that my brother was in, he got drafted during the Vietnam War. And then he got into the National Guard. I think he was assisted by my father, but he didn't have to go to Vietnam. But anyway, he was here. And when he came back from basic training and after I was out of high school, he was here and he started a very successful lounge kind of rock band. And they were called Straw Dogs. And he was looking for a new female singer. And I was there. And I wanted that job. And they had me try out 3 times. I'm not kidding. I was going. And then I finally said, you know what? If you guys are just making fun of me after I leave, I'm done. This is it. This is the last time I'm going to come and try and sing. So anyway, after I left that day, they got a hold of me and said, yeah, you got the job. And so my life changed immensely after that. I was working at Bonanza and thinking I was going to go to college, and always did think I'd go back to college, but life took a different path for me.
So you never did go to college, huh?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't go to college. I continued to work in the bands, and then, like I said, in 1979, about 4 years after I got hired, I was always the person that did the books. I was always the person that kind of started doing the contracts and talking with the bar managers. And then the system that we had for agencies collapsed in Rapid City. Okay. The strong agent was bought out by somebody, and he signed a non-compete clause. And so a friend of mine and we started an agency and hired him.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with them for a while, but I realized after about a couple of years, I couldn't make any money. So I owned the business. So I said, I bought out my partner and fired the other guy. And then I was on my own, which I liked.
Right.
And then I started DD The Fayrohs, which was an incredible success right from the get-go. But that's because we really planned it that way. The baby boomers were really looking for their kind of music, and it wasn't really, we didn't have like individual stations. Like you couldn't just go to the 60s rock station, or there was only only Uncle Brucey on Saturday nights, if you wanted to listen to that kind of music. So we started this band and did the music with respect. And we did the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Four Seasons. And as I call them, the whiny girl songs, the It's My Party and Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow. But we did it with the harmonies and all the kinds of things that made that music really special. And there was only 4 of us, so it was a pretty stripped down sound.
Who did you start with? Who was the band members when you first started?
Surprisingly enough, our drummer is the same. Tom Sitzler is still with us. My husband, Don Laerdal, he's still with us. And working with your husband in a rock band can be an extreme challenge. And then also Rod Schroeder, who was the person that started the band with me and had the idea for it. Then he left. We had a different keyboard player gal, and I loved working with Vicky, but she left too. And then we hired Hank Harris, and he's been with us pretty much for the last 30 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know Hank, and just a wonderful guy. What a great musician, too.
Great musician.
And my understanding, he plays bass with your band.
He plays bass with us, yeah.
And I know him as a guitar player, and phenomenal. I mean, he's a great fit. So when I read your bio and saw your husband was a guitar player, I was like, wow.
But he was, he needed a gig.
Yeah.
He needed a steady job, and that was our job, So I booked the band, and, because the band was so popular, I kind of got a lot of calls that I couldn't fill with us, so I could hire a lot of other bands. And so the booking agency was successful for a number of reasons, but one of them was we have great musicians here in the Black Hills, and so we became the place to call or go to, and there was a structure here. You could get somebody, and you could get a contract, and you knew you were going to get something professional, and there were just really good bands here, and we could see each other and learn from each other.
Yeah.
So that's how, and if you're playing 6 or 7 nights a week, you get good fast.
Right.
Or you don't work.
Right, right. Well, yeah, you're forced, and plus then you're playing a lot. So,
you're playing a lot.
Just, you're putting in those hours of constant
so you're
playing.
Practicing and you're playing and you get good fast.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So talk about the booking agency. I know we started down that road and then I pulled you back a little bit. Talk about the booking agency and how that kind of evolved and then what made you leave, I guess, that?
Well, it was a man's world. And in fact, at first I was a little shocked. It is 1979, so it's a long time ago. And a lot of the people that I worked with in a contractual basis when I was in a band, when before DD and The Fayrohs, I was in other groups. And I was the leader of those bands. And then when I'm a booking agent, the men would say, "We're not working with her. We're not working with Darla. That's, I don't care. She's a fine band leader, but she's not a booking agent." Mm-hmm. Even some of my friends in bands also felt the same way. Well, she's a band person, but she's no booking agent. And so that was kind of a stunner, you know?
Yeah.
Because here's all these guys I've been working with all this time, and they kind of knew my skill set, but they didn't. And of course, the guy I fired went ahead and started another agency. And so I did have some competition. But luckily I had the band that most people wanted. So I just kind of hung with it, and I thought, I guess you'll feel that way for a while, but eventually you're going to find out that you're going to have to call me.
Right.
And that did happen. I just hung in there, and not every man was like that. Okay. Not everyone was like that. And there were some bar owners and bar managers that were women as well. So, it was a struggle for a while, but it kind of turned around within a 3 or 4 year period.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But you're right. It was a guy's world, but, and it remains, I think, in a lot of ways that way. I don't know a lot of female musicians to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even, people that's managing bands or anything like that.
Yeah. You just don't mainly see women in that capacity.
Right. Right.
But I had all brothers, so it wasn't new to me.
Right. So as a musician, who's kind of your biggest influences when you think about women and what you were doing as being a leader of the band? Did you have anybody? I
looked at guys.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's who I had to look at for influences. When I was younger, I really did like the harder rock stuff. I ended up in a band where they were doing a lot of lounge music, so I loved the Carole King and Carly Simon kind of thing. Right. And they were pretty self-motivated and, did their own thing and were very successful women at that time. Then as the, 70s and 80s kind of got going. Of course, Pat Benatar and Stevie Nicks and those kinds of gals that seem to be charting their own course and writing their own music. I was never a songwriter. I was always a cover band person, and I didn't ever leave South Dakota or, leave Rapid City. I really felt like I had talent and I like to entertain, but I knew my place in the universe.
Right. Well, obviously you've never left it. Well, I guess I shouldn't say never.
I traveled, with the band. But
I mean, obviously this is your home.
This is my home.
You're comfortable here, and this is completely fine with,
that was fine with me. Success in the middle. And my husband and I, while I was in the band, I was pregnant twice. That was a new thing for people to see.
Yeah.
And, I'd have guys say things to me like, oh, well, when that baby comes, the fun's over and you'll probably be staying home. And I said, this is my job. I'm not going to be staying home. I still need money for a child. I can't imagine, what are you talking about? And so those children just grew up with that same kind of lifestyle that we had. They heard us practicing. We'd have babysitters come over when they were really little, when they couldn't come down and we needed to concentrate. And then as they got older, they were never with their parents on weekends, because we were always playing or even during the week. So we had, when my daughter, Mattie, was born, we decided we needed some real solid childcare, and we hired a woman who came in. She was 19. She took one night. My parents took the other night. So my kids got to grow up a lot with grandparents, which was an incredible influence on them.
Right.
And of course the music too. So they had a really, I don't know, it was really unusual, but it was a really, they will say it was really cool for them, and they used to like to drop that name every once in a while, like, my mom's DD with DD and the Fayrohs, to teachers or something, or wherever they thought it might get them something. So,
like kids do.
Yeah,
they're going to get ahead.
Yeah, we were really well known, so I'd go shopping with them, or we'd go to the restaurant, and we'd always be interrupted, and so that was kind of odd for them. It was a little awkward.
And so when you were booking, too, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, you started booking shows for that as well, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. I worked with what was the Camel Tent, and I really enjoyed that, because they were right downtown where the Loud American is, I think, now. I hope I've got it right. I don't know. Things changed up there, but, I'd book the whole week. I never really booked much with Woody out at Buffalo Chip, although we did play there a couple times.
Right.
And then, later on, when maybe I can talk about my kiddos and the influence of growing up with an arts background. But Drew, my son, played out there when he was 15. He wrote all the parts for the bands. He recorded it all, and then he was the lead player for the band. He was exceptional. Wow. So he wrote it all, recorded it all on a tape, and gave it to the bass player, his dad, and then the drummer, and then they worked it up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's good. No, I was just kind of, and then what brought that to the booking agency kind of to the end? Oh,
I did book a lot for the rally. So, that was a good thing. And then Deadwood for a while was a really good thing too when gambling came in.
Right.
But before that, there were two solid bars up there that I could book all the time.
Okay.
And then after gambling, well, they really didn't need it so much, and things changed and everything got rebuilt.
Yep.
So for a while, it was really a boon for the bands to be able to play up there. But then after a while, they just thought, well, we'll put in more machines and we won't have bands. So right now, I think they're having a rebirth of some of that, getting the bands back in to keep people entertained and keep people in Deadwood. And now they've got their new Main Street Square kind of deal where they'll have live bands this summer.
Yeah.
So, ebbs and flows. But why I left the booking agency, or why booking left me, the karaoke came in, the DJs were very popular, and the demand for bands was just continuing to go down. And as the band goes down, the supply diminishes, and so I didn't have as many bands to book.
Right.
I didn't want to book DJs. So I shot myself in the foot in a way. I had a good business, but I just didn't want to go with the electronic thing. I was so,
sure.
You can't do something that your heart really is feeling. It didn't make me a ton of money, but it made me enough to live on. but it was just coming to an end of that particular era.
Right. No, I totally understand that. You know, things are always evolving. I mean, look at the digital aspect of music and even in photography and how it's changed the industries, you know. So, I mean, to some degree, my son is a musician. He plays a lot like electronic rap. And not necessarily my favorite, but I mean, he's really talented. He writes all his own music and raps his own stuff. And he was a heavy metal. When he was 14, he played a battle of bands in Okinawa, Japan, and won at 14 playing Crazy Train.
Randy Rhoads is such an awesome guitar player. Yeah, so I can, that would be tough.
And so his 14. Head got kind of big because he would go to the Chowha Kadena Air Force Base. His stepdad, I was a Marine, and his stepdad was a Marine, and he would go in the Chowha Kadena Air Force Base, and the airmen and everybody would be like, "Oh my God, you're the guy from the band last night," you know. So he was telling me that story, so which is kind of cool.
It is kind of a heady profession. There's no denying that. You know, I do kind of miss that a little bit in my life, you know, not getting recognized. You know, I mean, somebody said to me one time, it must be great having a job where people clap for you every time you get done with something. And I said, yeah, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah, you don't always get the claps, I suppose. Yeah.
No.
Especially early on, I imagine. But
early on, really we did, because people just really got us right away.
Good.
And then we opened up for the Beach Boys in 1985 down at the Civic Center. And then after that, you know, it was really pretty easy.
Yeah.
You know, I kept thinking it was going to end, and it just didn't.
Oh, wow.
So,
opening it for the Beach Boys, that's quite an accomplishment.
It was huge, and we didn't know how huge it was. And so we got done, and, you know, well, actually, I was pregnant with my first child, and I was about 5 months pregnant anyway, but I still got into my dress. But so we were getting ready, and they brought in like a cart of alcohol for our room, and of course, I couldn't have any. But the guys are going, "That must be for the Beach Boys." And they go, "No, this is for DD and the Fayrohs." We're like, "Oh, really?" You know? And then we got done playing, and then so we're going to go out, me and the drummer, we're just going to go out and see our families, you know, and we're by the curtain, and the security guys goes, "Don't go out there." And we're going to go see our, you know, my parents, whatever. And he goes, "Okay." And so we walked out and we're just mobbed, you know, and they're like with little girls and stuff. And it was great, but it was very surprising because I'd never experienced that before. Didn't expect it at all.
Right.
So,
no, that's
so
crazy.
we ran back right in the curtains going, "Okay, we got it now. We understand."
Oh, that's fun. That's a great story. Yeah. So you kind of spearheaded the Allied Arts Fund. We're going to jump now. I guess we probably jumped up a bunch ahead.
I did not spearhead that. I'll tell you, Ruth Brennan, who was the arts goddess here in town, started that. It was a kind of a thing that was going on in the 80s and 90s of communities were getting together to have a united way of the arts as a way to raise money for their smaller groups. And it is kind of brilliant. You know, I mean, if you're Bells of the Hills or a small vocal group or whatever, you know, Dakota Choral Union or the Artists of the Hills.
Right. Those
groups could get some money from this particular effort. So when it started out, it was a really good thing. I started working there in the late 90s. So I wasn't the person that got it going. When I got there, I was just working operations. So I'm doing a little bit of fundraising. However, it grew to about 9 organizations that were getting money from this group. And the city had said, before I got there, "Why don't you take our city subsidy? We're tired of the arts groups fighting about this money," because when you get limited resources, there's usually bickering. "So why don't you take the money, Allied Arts, and you can disperse it for us? We don't have to do it. The people that are in the arts and know the arts will be doing that." And so for a long time, that really worked very well. And those larger groups were the Symphony, the Black Hills Community Theater, Rapid City Concert Association, Artists of the Black Hills. I think that's what their name was. Mm-hmm. So big groups like that, Dakota Choral Union, and some of those groups were funded under city ordinance.
Okay.
In 1935, when the city was just kind of starting, they decided they did need to have money for a symphony, which they decided to fund. They did need money for band concerts, the municipal band concerts down where it's at the band shell now. Of course, I don't know where it was then, but It was Canyon Lake Park for a long time. and then also for the Ranger Band, because there was a group of 8 cities that got together that wanted to have parades, but they didn't have bands and they didn't have the things they needed to actually make a parade, right? So I think it was Custer, or somebody took the drum and bugle corps, and then we took the Ranger Band, and somebody else had another group. And so these 8 cities would come together and actually make a decent parade. Oh. And that's where that funding came for our Ranger Band.
How did they decide, or maybe you don't even know, but back in the 30s, how did they decide like how much budget to give artists or these bands?
I don't know, okay. But the Dakota Choral Union was our city's non-auditioned choir, and so anybody that really wanted to sing could be part of that. They do have a break-off choir now, the Cantorai Choir, which is auditioned, but it is still a pretty big group, and we just had them. I invited them to come to the city council meeting before Christmas and perform for us. They brought all 70 members. It was awesome.
Wow.
And they performed in the actual council chambers. But I think it was mainly for groups that would do the most service for the community. I think that's how they determined who it would be.
And then we also have the Rapid City Arts Council. Did that come about later, or was that before? What's the relationship? Because weren't they combined at one time, or have they always been separate?
They've always been separate. Okay. And I'm trying to just figure out when the Rapid City Arts Council started, but I think it was in the 60s.
Okay.
So I think most cities weren't looking at an arts council model until around the 60s. And so I don't know exactly where they operated out of. But then after the 1972 flood, Art Dahl, they were going to take down the auditorium anyway, which I loved. It was a sacred place to me because that's where they had a lot of the rock concerts. Right. But it was flooding all the time in the basement. My dad said, as far as like the guard used it a lot, it was just no good for them anymore, so take it out. And Art Dahl, the banker, came along and said, well, I'd like to build something there as a present to the city, but I don't want the city to run it. I want the Rapid City Arts Council to run it, and it's going to be an arts center. And so he wanted the cyclorama, which is the depiction of economic history of the U.S., at least from one perspective.
And it's built where it's at now.
Where it's at now.
Yeah.
Yep. And then somebody said, well, why don't you put in like a lecture hall or at least something that you can perform in? And so he built a theater, and then there was the administration area, and then downstairs was education. So when I started working for the Dahl in 2004, and at that time, we were looking at expansion. They had been looking at expansion for a long time, and they had hired Linda Anderson as their director to make that happen. But when I got there, we just had the performance hall, which was mainly run by the Black Hills Community Theater as their performance area, the cyclorama, which was kind of the, reception place, and we had that as a secondary performance hall. The lobby was about the only actual art gallery had, and then the other room they built as a gallery was run by the Dakota Artists Guild.
Okay.
And so Ruth had put that together. She was very smart, because she had people running the areas that they were best at,
Okay.
But then when Linda came in, those groups still felt a lot of ownership of that, and Linda wanted to use the Dahl as more of a city functioning place and give it out to other groups that were hungry for performance space or really wanted exhibit space.
Right.
And I know we're going to talk about exhibit space in a little bit. So, there was a lot of animosity when she came in and said, no, Dakota Artists Guild, you're not going to run this anymore. We're going to use this for exhibitions. And no, Black Hills Community Theater, eventually you're going to be out of here because we need it for other groups that want to perform. So it was very contentious.
Right.
But then we went ahead and raised the money. She had a lot of stuff raised. I did events, and since we didn't really have a place to do events at, I did them at the Journey or over at the Masonic Temple, some churches, wherever I could do them.
Right.
And it was really a great thing for the Dahl because we got to bring our programs outside of those walls, and a lot of people got to see what we were doing instead of just the people that generally went to the Dahl. So here we are. We're set for the expansion. We had raised $3.8 million. The city had raised was going to give us 3.2 from the vision funds, and that's how the $7 million was brought together to make that entire block, with the event hall in the middle, which was a very scaled down version because the community theater had pulled out, and then the MDU building, which some people might remember it as that. The city had purchased for us with the idea that we would at some time bridge that,
Right.
and they'd purchased it for like $50,000. They didn't pay a lot for it,
Right.
and that became the education center and administrative offices. So it was great, but by the time that was all built, I was totally exhausted, and I went to another area. But if we're going to talk about exhibits and visual artists, this would probably be the place to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead. The question I had, so what started this whole conversation with the mayor, with you, is there when I was coming back from Denver from doing an interview down there with some artists, I'd heard on the radio that the city had decreased the amount of money for the contingency fund, for the art contingency fund. So that just kind of raised, I guess, the idea in my head, like, I need to know more about this. And so we've been talking to like Jerry and Jay Jaramillo, who do a lot of murals down in Denver and North Glen and those areas. And they get a lot of funding from cities to do murals specifically, but also to help fund different art projects. So I really came back to Rapid City not knowing for sure how the city government deals with art funding. And so,
well, Denver has it down when it comes to art funding. In fact, I just heard about them last week being, I don't know if you heard this, but in a recent study, they have the most people per capita that attend performances, exhibits. I mean, they are the most art participating community in the country at this point, even outpacing Boston or Philadelphia or New York, places that really have a lot of great art to offer. But because Denver started this, 20, 30 years ago, where they're giving a penny of every sales tax to the arts, they have the Denver Art Museum, which is wacky. I love it, but it's the most wacky design. It kind of made me sick the first time I was ever in it, just because it was very disorienting.
Right, yeah.
And then all the performance spaces, and then in Lakewood and also in Aurora, they have some beautiful facilities there. And I just can't say enough about Denver's, this was a plan. It didn't happen by accident. This was something they actually started doing years ago, and it worked.
Yeah.
And I think, in Rapid City, sometimes I'm criticized because, I am on the council because I am such an arts proponent. But, when people criticize me for not trying to get more funding for roads, I just say, no one's ever come here for our roads. They don't.
Exactly.
I mean, and I know roads are important. It's a catchy thing to say, and I know infrastructure is important. I know all those things. But how we get people here is through our quality of life. And if we can get people to come here and spend their money here and explore this area and live here because it's so awesome, that's where you get the money to fix your roads. So I will always fight for quality of life funding. Yeah. But now we'll get back to a little bit of the contingency funding. They were always coming in with about $100,000 for funding for the arts. Now, if you think of the symphony, it's a big organization. They get around $14,000. That's not very much, for a symphony to pay them and practice. I mean, they're not given practice places. They have to pay for them. So the rest of it has to be generated through fundraising and through ticket sales. And that's a big job. So as the Allied Arts was getting this money, I noticed that the Allied Arts group itself was raising less money for the groups, and more of their money was just, the city money. And that concerned me a lot. Because when I was there, we'd get $14,000 from the city for the symphony, and then we'd give them another $10,000 that we'd raise for them. And that was for 14 arts groups, so we really worked hard. So the last time I heard from what the city gave the symphony $14,000, I'm not sure if that's exact, but then the Allied Arts gave them $1,000. That's it. So they weren't really doing a very good job of raising money for those arts groups like they were supposed to.
Yeah.
But they were still holding them to obligation of coming to all of their events, helping them raise money, and then holding this city money over the heads of the arts organizations saying, you will do this, or, you know, you might not get all that money. And it was a kind of a threat.
Right.
You know, although they didn't really say it, everybody knew it.
Right.
You're going to help out, or it might affect your city funding, which is not our intention.
Mm-hmm.
That money is to go to those groups. We know how much money is to go to those groups. And to have that money being held hostage unless you participate at a certain level and are not getting a lot of the what you used to get, I mean, what's the point? And we thought we could do better as a city. We just thought there has to be a better way to get the middleman out of this. Now, I think I don't want to tell tales out of school because I wasn't in the room, but the Allied Arts got more angry and more angry about the amount of money they were getting. So the mayor had just had it. Yeah. And he said, you know, this year I'm cutting you $25,000 because last year I barely cut you at all and everybody got a cut and you were still the angry ones. The Journey said, hey, okay, if everybody's getting a cut, we can handle that. Yeah. The Dahl said, if everyone's getting a cut, we'll suck it up, right?
Yeah.
Allied Arts lost it. So I'm just saying that how you treat people that fund you is super important. Thank yous are important, you know, and even to the city, it's important. I think that they got used to it. Mm-hmm. It was an entitlement, not something that they thought they couldn't get anymore.
Yeah, and I won't mention his name, but there was another city councilman I talked to, and he basically said the deciding moment for him was when they personally attacked him, you know, in the public. And so he just kind of like threw his hands up and just said, you know what, I'm gonna go along with this idea of moving the money to the Rapid City Arts Council.
I was a recipient of some of that vitriol too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you know, because I was the person that was really usually the cheerleader for the arts, but I wanted to get that money just back to what it was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And by ordinance, the Rapid City Arts Council can be a distribution unit for that city money. Okay, so we didn't have to change any laws. We didn't have to change anything. In fact, we didn't even have to announce it.
Right.
You know, that money could have just been switched over. But naturally, you know, the Allied Arts were very protectionist. They wanted to hold on to that subsidy because it gave them power, you know, and it gave them strength. And they thought they were doing a good job. They really did believe they were doing the right thing. But, you know, as a person that had been there before and seen it done so much better, I had to say, you're not, you know, and maybe in the future, maybe sometime down the road, that will come back to you. Yeah. But for right now, I want it somewhere where people aren't in the middle and using that money to strong arm other arts groups.
Right. Yeah. So now it's switched over to the Rapid City Arts Council. Mm-hmm. They're kind of housed at the Dahl Fine Arts Center,
yeah,
aren't they?
The Rapid City Arts Council runs the Dahl. That's the agreement with the city.
Yeah. And then other artists can apply for funding through them, right?
Right. But not individual artists for the most part.
Okay.
This is grant money for groups.
Okay.
And so it's to sustain our symphony, sustain the Black Hills Community Theater, the groups that have the bigger expenses. And you might think, oh, those big groups can go out and raise their own money. That's true. But if your hands are tied, you know, for a couple months out of the year, or, you know, some of your people that are donating to the Allied Arts think that you're going to get a lot more of that money, you know, you're better off just fundraising for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that was my message to those people. You know, I said, the arts groups here are strong. You know, we support them, and you guys can get through this next year. And I will try and restore that $25,000 because they were cut from $100,000 to $75,000, which I think is not good.
Right.
But it was mainly the mayor was feeling like if you don't appreciate this, then you're not going to get as much.
Right. Right.
And
so now it's based on a percentage, right? It is in his budget or in the council budget or the city budget.
It is. It is somewhat, but if we can make a good case for them that they need this more money, and the arts community is not going to be smaller, as you mentioned, mural art is just growing, exponentially across the country, and I see even our tourism brochures now have Art Alley, which you probably weren't here for that, but the growth of Art Alley was, a big contentious thing for a while. And the council simply decided not to make a decision on it. They said, we're not going to say that's wrong. Right. And I was not on the council then. And I thought that was kind of a brave thing. Yeah. And so now it's kind of a little tourist attraction.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, I periodically just walk down just to see what's changed, because it's always evolving and always changing. Yeah. And I think we were here when it started, because we've been here since I think 2007, 2005.
Oh, okay.
And 2007.
Yeah. So Todd Regioni kind of started it.
Yep,
and,
yep.
And
I know Todd, so not very well, but
yeah, I don't know him super well either. But I thought it was kind of a brave thing, and then it kind of just happened. And so do I miss some of the stuff? I'll see some great art, and then I'll go, oh, it's gone, but that's the transitional kind of way of mural art.
So the city has no control, or do they, as far as the council? Or
we gave control of Art Alley to the Rapid City Arts Council.
Okay, so
they work with the businesses on to as to what can be done there. And you might see the signage. Some of the businesses don't want anything there.
Right.
So.
Yep, I've seen that as well. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's on Thursday nights, which is a big summer. Through the summer, every Thursday night they have a big music festival down there, and just a ton of people walking through the alley. So
ton of people.
It is no different than the President's on the corner. It's a draw.
It's the conduit, on summer nights where we have people going from one concert to the other. And then there's this kind of the smaller groups or rap artists or whatever, and they're doing their thing, and jewelry artists and some of that thing. And, the city hasn't stepped into that either to make a decision on whether or not you can be there, because we haven't had any arguments or fights about it.
Right, right. So as a big proponent for the arts, as you are, obviously because of your history, what do you think the role is for a small municipality like Rapid City? Should we have a bigger role as city government to pay for murals, and then how would you like to see, not to put you on the spot, obviously I'm not trying to, but you're safe till 2022, but not to put you on the spot, but I was just kind of curious what your thoughts are.
I love the fact that we had our 1 cent sales tax for the vision funds, and that was divided kind of in half for infrastructure and quality of life. I get it. Some of that money actually is used to repair the journey or to repair the Dahl, because that's infrastructure costs for the city. Mm-hmm. So that half cent, doesn't kill me. But I won't give any more on that, at least while I'm there, because that has brought us some incredible things. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now that money is being used for our new civic center. Mm-hmm. Other communities are so, I think, really in awe and get a little bit jealous of the fact that we have this money to use for quality of life projects. Yeah. There's some things that are still missing here. I would really love to see an area just dedicated to the Nakota artists of our state. I'd like to see a nice Indian center that really would promote the arts, the jewelry, everything that is part of the beauty of that culture. Then we don't have a place for that right now. The closest thing we have is Prairie Edge. Yeah, and that's, to me, embarrassing, because I think a lot of people come here to see that culture. There's nowhere to see it here. Yeah,
as like in Santa Fe, they have a whole district for Native American arts and crafts. And
you saw what it did for their community. Yeah. So to do that would probably be what I would wish as our next step. Would be that kind of thing. As far as giving more money to the arts, I would always be a proponent of that because of what I said earlier. It's quality of life that draws people. I mean, just look what, although most people might not think of this as an art project, but Main Street Square has changed our city. Yeah. And then the artists that came in and did wind and water and did all the etching there on the stonework. And, it's an incredible addition to our community. So I think that whenever you improve your quality of life like that, it resonates throughout the whole community. We can feel it. And as far as our visual artists go, I think they could use some more support. We're sitting in a gallery right now in Racing Magpie. You can see it's very small. It's not adequate for the incredible work they have that's right here behind us. So, and they have a lot of studios here as well. But this is a private concern. It should be something funded by the city. Mm-hmm. And, so that would be my next hope. But as far as like helping individual artists, I really think the best way we can do that is by increasing exhibit space. Right now at the Dahl, we have 3 exhibit spaces where we used to have really 1.
Right.
And that's how artists build their resume, if they have shows. The budget there is very limited. They've struggled with a director. I think now they have Rob Joyce. I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's a fundraiser, and he could be the guy that's going to really make that
And he came
happen.
from the Sioux Falls Jazz Festival. I don't know if that's the right term or the right name.
Jazz and Blues Festival.
Yes.
Yep. He did. And their community changed as well. Mm-hmm. That was with the building of the Levitt stage there.
Okay.
Do you know of this?
Just vaguely.
Yeah, they choose a community every so many years, and they build a beautiful facility there for live performance.
Okay.
And this stage and this facility they built, has a green room, and it's got production, lots of power. It's got lighting. It's beautiful, and it's got a great green expanse before it. They've got a good group of people behind it, volunteers that come out and make sure it's clean and nice and a good experience. And last year, I think they had something like 50,000, 60,000 people attend their shows.
Wow.
They did 30 last summer. They're going to do 50.
Wow.
So the idea of a jazz and blues festival that was free kind of went by the wayside because this is kind of taken.
That took its place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And those things happen.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
And that's a great thing. So yeah. Anyway, so that's what's happening there. And now I've talked so long about Sioux Falls, I forgot your question. So
I think I forgot it too. But so I met Robert
Rob Joyce, yeah.
Rob, I met him last night. So it was nice to meet him, and I told him that in the future I want to talk to him, and he kind of like punted to how their curator.
Denise.
Denise. So I'm hoping to sit down with Denise and him and talk about that.
Well, Denise has actually really changed the complexion of the shows down there. When I was there, we had a few more shows from artists from out of town. They simply can't afford that anymore to bring in somebody from New York.
Yeah.
And, as encouraging as that might be to see some of that art, those were the smallest receptions we ever had because people wouldn't go down and see them. Yeah. But when you bring in a show like last night at the Dahl, where we had He Said, She Said with 2 very well-known people from the community, Susan Turnbull and Bill Fleming, you have an incredible turnout like last night. What was there, 300 people in that place?
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful seeing you there, by the way.
It was just jam-packed. And
it was.
So, Denise really has a way of understanding, how to put shows together that draw in people, whether that's several artists at once or just the combination of shows she has in the galleries at one time. Last night, I don't know who was in the main gallery as you go in, the Shaver Gallery, but to see the
Dick Termes, yeah.
well, no, the one before that. They had these really nice kind of pastel paintings.
Oh, okay.
And then the Termospheres.
Oh, I know.
I went in there and I hadn't been able to see it yet. And for those of you who might not know what a thermosphere is, it's the spherical art.
Well, and it's 6-point perspective too.
6-point perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just geometry and art in round balls that just circulate in this big gallery. It was gorgeous.
And he was there last night, and I did talk to him a little bit about it. But it was nice to see him there to support Bill Fleming, who does geographic designs and paints them. And so that relation, he had a great question for Bill, and it's nice to see when I would say a well-renowned artist comes and support local people. Not that Bill's not an artist, but he's not really typically thought of as an artist.
I don't think he's done a show before,
right?
So
and
this was really new. I love Susan's stuff, so that
she's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's just great. And so just having that kind of community time together, and artists support each other, like musicians support each other. We try to go out and see each other. I have been reluctant to go out much in the last few years just because I'm on council. I don't want to be seen hanging out in bars a lot. But regardless, I do like to support my friends whenever I see them playing. It gives me more joy than anything I could see at the Civic Center.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And, having that camaraderie, as musicians, I can't even imagine what that's like, So it would be fun to go and hang out at the bar and listen to your friends play.
Absolutely.
And,
that's just one of my biggest joys.
The curse of being on Civic Council, the Civic Council, is that you can't do that, but
I don't.
as much.
Yeah, I don't do it as much. And also going to summer nights, I get waylaid into conversations, and I just want to go. I want to listen. So anyway, but it's. The Dahl is an incredible resource for us, and it's an incredible resource for our visual artists. And I would just like to see artists have a bit more visual art space to be able to exhibit in this town and build their resumes, because we have incredible talent in the Black Hills. I think this area, I know I've heard it before, and I think it sounds kind of wonky sometimes, but it does have that kind of feel. It has that feel in the Black Hills of, anything can happen. You can generate your own stuff, and people will come and see it. I've heard it said of the Great Plains that we have the most innovative shows here, the most innovative work here, because we don't have New York snobs or Chicago reviewers coming out and saying, well, that was crap.
Right. Right.
We have people that really do innovate, and we appreciate them. And so for me, this is this is an area that's kind of an incubator, and it really does produce some great stuff.
Yeah. And like you said, Racing Magpie, they got a number of artists here. Wade Patton is here. Ray Tisdale's here. These are phenomenal artists. I seen Wade when he's got ones called Magpie Racing, which I guess he got approval from the art or the gallery curator here, but to use that name. But the tight pin work that he does is just absolutely amazing. So it's and then he went down to the Santa Fe Arts Festival, the Native American Arts Festival, and took that piece with him. And I haven't talked to him. And it's hanging up right over there.
There's all kinds of ribbons on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a phenomenal piece. So and it's just great that we have this building right here supporting, and what they're doing here to support the local artists is great.
Yes.
Until we can get a more spaces for artists. This is fantastic.
People come here expecting to see Lakota culture, because where in the world can you see it besides here? Nowhere.
Yeah, right.
And we have not used that to actually, and I don't want to use the word exploit, but we need to invite people to see the work, and they can't see it here yet.
Yeah.
We just have to work with our Native community, because they're ready for it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're ready for it.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. I really hope we can go in that direction.
Working here is dangerous, by the way, because you see stuff. I bought one of his Wade's pieces, and just working in an art gallery is just kind of dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you collect art? I mean, is that something that you normally do, or?
My husband is more into the collecting of art than I am. He was a visual artist, and that happens a lot with musicians, right? But he kind of put that away and just decided to concentrate on his music. But generally, he's the one that really gets us some of the great pieces. But, every once in a while, I grab some stuff too. And we have some incredible American Indian art as well.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Well, good. So if artists want to get funding, people like Wade Patton or Ray Tisdale or some other one, John Lopez, is looking for some funding, how do they do it in Rapid City or the area?
I would say that you can apply to the South Dakota Arts Council. That's one avenue. There are grant sources available that I know that Wade just got a grant, and I'm not sure exactly where that came from. So I'm a little bit limited on my knowledge of grants for visual artists. However, there is Artists of the Black Hills. There's the Watercolor Society of the Black Hills. For photographers, the Dahl always has a competition for the Dahl Mountain photo competition. There's other South Dakota photo competitions around here that I think that's always a good starting point, because if they critique your work, and most of the photo competitions will, if you ask for it, if you're willing to go in and ask for somebody, because when I was at the Dahl, I got that photo competition started, and that's what some of those photo people really wanted, was like some tips on how I get better.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the class situation is here. There for people that want a more elevated art class. I really can't say much about that. However, I would get involved at the Dahl because that's the place where visual artists hang out. And I'd also, depending on your medium, probably the Artists of the Black Hills or the Watercolor Society. The muralists are kind of getting together and getting themselves organized now. Focus Smith is the person that organizes that from the Dahl. So he's a young person that did a lot of that expression when they called it tagging. But, so he's a person that can help out as well if you're a younger artist. And I believe with the in the educational part of the Dahl, they have emerging artists, not only for music, but they have visual artists as well. So emerging it doesn't mean young. It means at any age that you're just starting and you need to get a show up somewhere. That's someplace that you can look at, because then you can have that on your resume.
Mm-hmm. I know you've been on city council now for 3 terms. How do people get involved?
Well, how I got involved, it was kind of surprising, because I didn't really think of myself as that. I was kind of the smart alecky girl on stage. I didn't really say no to tequila shots when they were brought to me. I was kind of wild for years, and it's just the lifestyle. Yeah. I always kept it together enough to be the leader of the band or whatever. So, I wasn't careless with myself, but I did make quite a few jabs at political humor, because I thought I kept apprised of it and I knew what was going on in my city. So I think people kind of picked up on that, that I actually paid attention. And so a guy came to me who, let's see here, Jody Severson, who is... he says he's so liberal, his blood runs pink. And he came to me and said, hey, some of us think that you should run for council. And we talked about it for a long time. And I thought, well, yeah, from what I've seen of it, I had to go to a lot of meetings when the Dahl was going through expansion. There were things I was interested in where I would just show up at meetings. So I wasn't really a city groupie, but when things really interested me, I'd go to council. And so I said, yeah, I would give that some thought. Well, he said, you have to have your petition signed in 3 days. You got to get 50 signatures. And I said, oh man, I don't have time for that. Luckily, another guy stepped up. Brad Estes stepped up, and he ran. And that gave me a year to think about it. Yeah. So I thought about it for a year, and I thought, yeah, this is something I'd really like to try. Of course, like with most things that people just decide to try, if you would have known, you would have never done it, right? So I would like to say, for people that are thinking about this, if you're not, I was a well-known person, but I wasn't well known as a political person. For me, I had to raise $10,000. Right. Because signs and postcards and mailing and all those things cost money. Signs are really expensive, and postcards are really expensive, and mailing at least 2 of them to get yourself known is a lot. You have to go to forums, which I was unprepared for. I got to say, I was really shocked and very terrified by some of the questions about taxes or things like that. Right. But I don't think either of those things should keep people from doing it anyway. Because if you do interviews like this, which I've done all my life, you can usually turn a question into something you actually know about and can talk about. So generally speaking, I would get to that. Sometimes people would pin me back on, well, you didn't answer the question, but oh well. Usually those kinds of things were really difficult for me. So I liked the experience, and I did get elected. The first time I got elected, it was only about 178 votes. So if you don't think your vote doesn't matter, it does matter. They didn't let me know till 11, and I had a bottle of Kvass YMCA that I was going to start on around 9 because I thought, when I hear this, I'm going to have, a little party. But then they didn't call, and I just said, I don't care. So I knew the Journal wouldn't be calling me at 11. But anyway, so finally they called at 11 and let me know that I won, and I was really relieved. But that's when the real work starts.
Yeah.
And as far as getting to know the city, this is the work. You have 2 council meetings a month, and then you have 2 meetings that are either legal and finance or public works. You should read all the material, and they have a lot of material that's attached to everything. Thank God for digital, because I can't imagine having all this in paper.
Right.
So you can click on the links and things that you don't understand or that really, really concern you. So, and then on top of those 4 meetings, then you're usually assigned to 5 or 6 committees in the city. So whether it's the library board or the detox board or whatever it is.
What boards are you on? Or are those the ones you are?
I'm on the detox board for one thing, and I really thought it'd be very, very depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But right now they're in such a stage of innovation with the Hope Center and the loading up of the One Heart, where they're gonna, they've had the Hope Center where they drop off. Not the Hope Center, the Crisis Care Center. And that's where they drop off people that have been drinking. They've never had that resource before.
Right.
Now they don't have to process them. They're getting their cops back on the road. It's not costing us as much, and these people just want a place to sleep it off.
Yeah.
So it was really, really, these are the more chronic people that are probably not going to get much help. But if they do want help, there's more help there now than there ever was. Getting an ID is a big deal for a lot of these folks.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
Right.
So that's step 1. Anyway, GED, whatever those things are, when we get to the One Heart, that'll be the thing that's going to bring it all together. So it gives you a path forward, if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm on the detox board, and it's just a party every time I go. They're so excited. They're so happy with their figures and the people that are checking in and the people they're helping.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. I go to the Governmental Affairs Committee, which is one I really like. And that's where there's a representative from Thune's office, from Brown's office, from Dusty Johnson, from Pennington County, who never shows up, but just saying that if you're out there listening, and then myself and the school board rep. And so everybody gives those reports, and I really like that one a lot too. And now I'm blanking on the other ones.
Oh, that's all right. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I talked to, I'm good friends with Richie Nordstrom. We've established a relationship. I used to work at the Cheeseman Center for the past decade.
You did?
Yeah, I ran some of their civic education programs, and before that, I was their communications director. I did all their website stuff. So I got through the Cheeseman Center, I got to meet Richie and get to know him pretty well. And I got to the point where I started calling him omnipresent, like God, because he's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
Yeah,
he goes to everything.
Yeah. And now he's in Lead too. So because he bought a house up in Lead.
Yeah.
And he helped and I do we do the We the People program with my nonprofit called the Vantage Institute, and he was a judge. This guy is everywhere. And but
you'll notice, a lot of us are everywhere. You just don't.
Yeah.
I have my interest in the arts, and I might make time for that. Or
I saw you last night.
Yeah.
So you guys are. But the one point I was going to make with Richie is, we were talking one time, and he was like, you think it's two meetings a month, but it's all this work. There's a ton of work, a ton of responsibility as being a city council person.
And then on top of that, you have your constituents who are contacting you.
Yeah.
So, that's also time too. But Laura and I started doing something when she was elected where we do 2 forums a year where we invite people from Ward 5 to come in and talk to us and listen to us or ask us questions, whatever. And so that's a way that we can keep in contact throughout the year. I wanted to add one more thing about something I do for the community that I've been doing for 20 years, and that's the Pediatrics Book Drive. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I read about it in your bio, so please do.
Yeah. When I was in Leadership Rapid City, you're supposed to come up with something that'll change the town. And, I was touring the hospital and saw they had no books. And I kind of wondered why they didn't. And so I talked to somebody that was there and asked them, why don't you have books? And the nurse said, well, because when they're taken by anybody, even if you have a broken arm or you're a sibling, they're considered contagious. And we don't want to put them back on the shelves and have them taken out by a sick kid. So they go home. with those books. And so we constantly need new books. And I said, well, would you take used books? And they, I have a lot of friends with really great used books. And she said, yes, but they would have to be decontaminated. And I said, how would I do that? And she said, well, either by heat or cold. And I said, well, my garage is pretty cold in February. So I said, would that do? And she said, yeah, that would be fine. So I said, I'm going to do a book drive. So I thought, well, I'll make a goal that I think I can raise 500 books, and that'll, if I do that, I'll be successful. Well, that first year I raised between 5,000 and 7,000 books. We quit counting. We had so many, and the hospital was a little overwhelmed. And now that I think back on it, it's almost like, here, we had a big thing where we brought all these books up, and we're very proud. And, for the next year, they said, we've got enough, So I decided to help other groups with this. And that was 20 years ago. And every year I get, people come out of the woodwork and really help out. Throughout the years, Black Hills Federal Credit Union has always been a big help, and some other organizations. And now I take them to the South Dakota Department of Health, and they distribute them to the different nonprofits. But there's always 5,000 books.
Wow.
And so it's just been a really great thing. And every year I think, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. And then somebody calls and they have a need, and I go, okay, I'm gonna do this again. Somebody that I didn't think of before, like psychiatric hospital for children, or over by Bacon Park. They said, we have no books for kids.
Wow.
And so okay, and that's what kind of just gets me going every year. Is like there's always a different need.
Yeah, there's tons of need in this community,
but I have to really give a lot of credit to my husband Don, because he came up with the name Radiatrics. My children laughed at it, but he said pediatrics, Radiatrics, and then it was a family job for a while until they grew up and left. And now it's just me and Don schlepping around books.
Books.
And that'll start in March.
March, okay. Mm-hmm. No, that's an incredible, gift that you're giving back to the community. So I appreciate that, because, literacy is so important. And it's surprising even today how, there's a lot of people percentage wise that don't know how to read, when they get to adulthood and, they have a poor reading level, so that kind of work is important. But.
Yeah, and so I like doing that, and there are a lot of adults in this town. Their kids have grown up and gone away, and they're not going to come back for those books as much as you hope that they're going to. No, they're not. They're going to buy their kids new books most likely, and so get those books out and get them to Radiatrics. That's my little plea.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that. So if somebody's interested in running for city council, or curious about some of the boards that you're on, or getting connected with you for some art stuff, whether it's music or visual arts, how can they get a hold of you?
So right now I work for the Black Hills Playhouse, and what makes that really unusual is it started in 1946. It's part of USD and still is. It was started by Doc Lee, who was the Dean of Theatrical Arts or Dramatic Arts at USD, and he came out here to start it because he wanted to see a place where people could really hone their craft and also create jobs for people that were in the theater. Years down the road, they built a nice theater out there, and it's been continuing to grow. And
it's in the heart of the Black Hills.
It's in the middle of Custer State Park. It's in a beautiful location. Yeah, it's a little bit of a trek, but it's really an experience to go out there. You kind of unwind, and you get there, and it's this beautiful theater. And the thing that's different about it is summer stock, and the only one that's really close to our area that we're right now we've just gone out for auditions. They've seen about probably 1,700 people. And out of that, they hire 25, 30 actors for the season. And they live there, so it's really an expensive venture. The sets are built there. The costumes are designed there. Everything has to be done on site because it's so isolated, for one thing. Plus, it also, it's that education, or the people that need, design work, or, we hire designers to design those sets, but they still have to be built and created. So, sometimes we're hiring students to do that. And it's a place they can work. They can actually work and get money for this, and they live on site all summer. And they learn a lot by the end of the summer, because by the time we get the first show up, they're working on the next one. So they're rehearsing all day, they're building sets all day, they're getting costumes ready all day. And then, then they're ready to launch that show. So all day you're getting ready for the next show and performing at night. So really, it's a really unusual opportunity for people to work and hone their craft and to also get paid for it. So that's kind of the wonder of it here. And we bring in people from all over the country. We usually have about 23 states represented out there.
So how many people you said that come and participate, actors and...
we probably have 70 people that
70?
live on site. And then last year we had 1,700 or 17,000 people come through the and see the shows.
Yeah.
So that's a big enterprise.
Yeah. Well, and my wife and I have been out there a couple times, and yeah, it's a really cool environment. It's beautiful. You know, the drive there is wonderful. Even just going for the drive it's a wonderful experience. You know, it's a beautiful place. So
it is. And it's, you know, when we think of that in 1946, think of the echo that had on our performing arts here in Rapid City throughout the years. Yeah. People could go and see somebody who's professional. You know, they could go and see somebody who is studying to do this, or, you know, young people could be inspired. And it's just that really different type of educational situation or employment situation for a lot of people. So,
So is most of your money from that you get to operate that whole thing, does that come from ticket sales, or do you have grants? Is there a state grant money that comes through that?
There's a lot of things we do that I think people are not aware of, but I'll talk about the theater right now. We know where we live, and we know the $35 ticket price is kind of steep for some folks around here, but it costs us about $600,000 to be out there.
Wow.
So our ticket prices cover about 70% of our expenses. So 30% of that has to be raised. And some of that is through grants, but a lot of it is through an incredible group of people that we have that support the arts and support the theater here throughout the Black Hills. And also an alumni group that is an incredible support to us too, because they've been there, they worked there, they lived there, they formed bonds to the place, and they still support us. And so that's some of what we do. And we also do get grants. We write for grants all the time. We also have a children's theater called Dakota Players. They come out of Sioux Falls. We have a satellite office in Sioux Falls. That's a team of 2. And we have sets and costumes for at least 50 kids. And there are shows that this group has developed over the last 20 years. They're actually celebrating their 20-year anniversary this year. And they go out to places like Allen or Mobridge or Mitchell or someplace that doesn't have money for a drama program for their elementary school. And then the kids can participate. They also have lighting and sound, because not every kid wants to be on stage, but they do want to learn those tech positions. So they help kids, if you want a costume, whatever, we'll put you in that position. And then they have a show at the end of the week for the community. So everybody comes out to that. And then we've just started in Sioux Falls a disabilities theater program, because Lifeways and Dakota Abilities reached out to us because they don't have Black Hills Works there. They don't have a Flutter Productions there. So they reached out to Dakota Players, who are now doing that work for the last 3 years. So really working with that. And we just had Elf Jr., the musical, and found a very tall, outgoing, gangly kid with autism who played Buddy and was awesome. So those kinds of things we're growing in what people are wanting from theater. They're wanting some different things from theater now. The people in those chairs don't want to just in wheelchair or with autism or blindness or deafness. They don't want to just sit.
Right.
They want to be part of the action.
Yeah.
So this gives them the ability to be on stage. And for the parents or the family of those kids, they're just blown away by it.
Well, and I think of, the Susie Kappa Center, it's a little different. It's through Black Hills Works, but it's for artists of all abilities. So, and I got a piece hanging in my office that was given to me because I run the sound for the Morning Fill-Up. And it's a beautiful little piece. And, it's kind of Pollock-ish.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's great that we include that community, because I think for so many years, we just kind of tucked them away, and we didn't want them. Probably shouldn't say,
true.
We just tucked them away.
My husband had second cousins that were a generation older than he was. There's 3 sisters. He never knew they existed until he went to his uncle's funeral. No one from the family showed up for that funeral, because that family had been shunned because of those girls.
Right. Yeah.
And so he became their lifeline out here. But, I mean, yeah, you're not saying that something we don't know. It's national embarrassment, but we did put those people away.
Right.
And now they're on stage, and parents and families and communities are going, oh, this is some beautiful stuff here.
Yeah.
There's a woman that they work with who has cerebral palsy she's not an actress. She says, I'm a writer, and she's written 2 plays now for them.
Wow.
I mean, those kinds of things are incredible. She's a college student, but she's confined to a wheelchair, so you might not think of her that way.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't, looking at her, you wouldn't think she's a playwright.
Right.
But she is.
Yes.
And kudos for that. I mean, that's
Yes.
fantastic.
So, yeah, just things that you might not think of, that a blind kid could never be in a play. But, with somebody to help them get around the stage, they're certainly capable of learning lines and being where they need to be if they have a little help.
Yeah.
So, it's an amazing thing. And out here we have Flutter Productions that does that. But in Sioux Falls, they didn't have anybody. So we're, as the Black Hills Playhouse, I don't know what we're going to end up calling ourselves, because it's like Black Hills or South Dakota Playhouse Productions or something.
Right.
Because it's really enveloping the state now, because there are kids that need that theater education that they're not getting.
And Linda is the executive director.
And Linda Anderson is the
And did you
executive
follow
director.
her from the Dahl? Was it a package deal? They got you both.
when working for a visionary, it's
Yeah.
not easy sometimes, because she sees the big picture, and I'm like trying to just, raise money and do the things I do. And sometimes it's challenging, because she sees, what? No, we're going to do what? Now we're going to do disability theater. Really? Okay. I just got my head around Dakota Players. All right. Let's on to the next.
Yeah. And she's an amazing lady. And,
She is amazing.
And I love her husband, Brad.
Oh, Brad.
Oh my God.
And Linda was the one who saved the Playhouse too, because, she came in when they needed, $1 million for a septic system and all these repairs, because the governor shut that campus down. That was Governor Rounds, and they just stayed on, like in Spearfish and at the Matthews and over in Custer, wherever, and made it through the season. But she made sure that money got raised, and that, and once again, that incredible support of people from around the hills that didn't want to see that resource go.
Yeah. So if people want to support the Black Hills Playhouse, how do they get a hold of that? Or how do they get information for that?
We've got the Black Hills Playhouse website, or a Facebook page that we're always updating and talking about our new season and things like that. And this is our 75th year. We're celebrating 75 years of continuous operation. So that's amazing when you think of a theater when they had power for 1 hour at night when they were first starting. So
That's
those were
incredible.
some tough souls.
Yeah, no doubt.
Got that going. Anyway, and then the theater actually came about in 1956. So.
Okay. So is it blackhillsplayhouse.com or?
Yeah, blackhillsplayhouse.com. Yep. So that's how you get a hold of us. Or, we've got phone numbers and things like that. 605-255-4141 is how you get tickets for next year. So we're already selling our season tickets, of course.
That's awesome. And they're always looking for philanthropers. So if you got deep pockets, don't forget to reach out to them because they're doing great work for the whole entire state.
For the entire state.
That's amazing. Because I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I don't think a lot of people know that we're doing that stuff. I didn't know it when I got here, but so I've learned a lot. With every job I go to, I learn more things about the arts and an incredibly talented and innovative people that I get to work with. So I'm very lucky that I've gotten the performance end, I've gotten the musical side, I've gotten the exhibit side. I kind of know, and now I've got the governmental knowledge as well.
Right. You're a Renaissance woman.
I don't know if my husband would call me that.
Well,
anyway.
I mean, I think we have to say we're lucky to have you in this community doing what you're doing because, I mean, all the different aspects of, from DD and the Fayrohs to the booking agency to, what we just talked about with the Playhouse to the books. I mean, this is how community is supposed to work. Giving back, and you're definitely a shining star for that, and have received some accolades for that. So
I've got to say I haven't been ignored for my work, which is very nice.
Yeah,
it's very nice. But believe me, the first time I saw one of those awards in the mail, I broke down and cried because I was going, "What? Somebody actually noticed."
Yeah.
And
well, you're not doing it for the accolades, but
of course not.
No,
course
but
not,
it's nice to be recognized,
nice,
and rightly so.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my crown.
There you go. I hear it's on order. Well, Darla, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy Saturday or leisurely Saturday in this case.
It's a leisurely Saturday.
And it's a beautiful day in February.
It
I
is.
mean, it's almost 70 degrees in Rapid City. Last year, this time, it was probably 4.
And that's why we do live here, because sometimes these miracle days do happen, you know, and we get those banana belt weather. And
That's right.
So, yeah, it's just a great place to live and grow. And if you want to be part of the community, if you do want to change things, we have a big population, but it's small enough where if you want to make a difference, you still can.
Yeah, you can still be a big fish in a little pond, as they say. Yeah, so that's phenomenal. So thank you once again. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I appreciate it.